So in 4th grade, I moved to a new school. And it's a pretty nice school. I'm friends with some people, whatever. Well, we have a substitute coming on a Friday. And on Fridays, everybody gets popcorn at our school. So we're all in class eating our popcorn when the substitute comes up to this girl we'll call Taylor. So the substitute kind of just stands over her and watches her eat her popcorn. And then she goes, "You shouldn't eat that, you're a pig." And dude, she started crying. So she gets up to the front of the classroom and she's like talking about how much we should be eating, practically body shaming a bunch of 4th graders. And she keeps going up to this girl Taylor and just freaking like calling her a pig, calling her nasty, like literally coming for her. And then I think she dropped some on the floor and like the teacher went off on her. Eventually she got so mad she grabbed a desk and flipped it over. So Taylor was obviously crying for the rest of the day because this teacher was literally body shaming her. So the following Monday when the teacher comes back, we all tell her what happened. And that sub got fired like that.
My super embarrassing school story time. So when I was in 8th grade, I was obsessed with slime, squishies, Orbeez, and I would make crafts all the time. Anyway, I decided to make my own stress ball. And it was like a balloon and then pancake mix. So anyway, the next day I brought it to school and I was so excited because I had my own stress ball. I must have been really stressed that day because I popped it. Pancake mix flew everywhere, all over my classmates. And my crush was in that class. I was so lucky, the bell rang and I skirted out of that classroom. I didn't even clean it up.
One day we were on a field trip to school and I was sitting next to the horse girl named Beth. It was the most depressing ride ever because she kept neighing and making gallop noises with her shoes. She started aggressively eating something, so I looked at her to see her devouring the bus rat that runs across the floor. I started screaming and she was giggling and gobbling that rat like it was a McDonald's double quarter-pounder meal deal large with extra pickles and Sprite. There was blood everywhere and everyone was screaming and she started licking her fingers. I told the bus driver and he pulled over and called the police. It turns out she was mentally ill and she stays at a facility.
Hey, here's a pretty crazy story time. So when I was in elementary school, we used to do these lockdown drills just in case an intruder came into the school, we would know what to do. We never knew if it was a drill or not, we just had to assume it wasn't. So one time on the announcements, they called a lockdown and we all had to hide in a specific spot in the classroom. This specific time we were doing it, the teacher wasn't in the class. She had left the class to do something and we just had to figure it out by ourselves. Luckily, we had practiced this drill before, so we already knew exactly what to do. So we were all hiding in our spot, as we should. About 3 to 4 minutes go by and then the fire alarm goes off. We all looked at each other because we had no idea what to do. So we could either stay in the classroom, be safe from the intruder, but potentially get burned, or we could leave and the intruder would get us. We decided that we could outrun this intruder, so we decided to leave the class. So we all go outside, but no other classes were out there. So we all kind of just stood there in confusion. The alarm stops, so we walk back to our class, and when we got back, our teacher was very mad at us. He said that pulling a fire alarm is a common trick for the intruder to make the kids leave the class. Oh well.
We put our teacher in the hospital. Story time. My 6th grade class was so freaking bad, you guys. I mean, I wasn't, but the rest of the kids were horrible. Our classroom was located on the 2nd floor, so sometimes kids would throw things out the window and try to hit the kids on the ground. And normally it would just be things like pencils or crumbled up pieces of paper, nothing that could really hurt anybody, right? But one day while we were taking a test, my teacher had realized she forgot something in her car, so she left us in the classroom by ourselves. And some kids in my class thought it would be perfect to use this opportunity to cheat. So there was one kid in my class, and we're gonna name him Chris, but he decided to be a lookout, so he stood near the window to keep an eye out for the teacher. Well, when he saw her coming, the rest of the kids weren't done cheating yet, so they told him to cause a distraction. So he runs over to his desk, grabs the biggest textbook he can find, and throws it out the window at the teacher. The book hits her in the face, and it busted her bottom lip open. It was so bad that the school had to send her to the hospital.
One time when I was in high school, we had a teacher sit in on one of our classes, and the teacher who was actually teaching the class was like, "Okay guys, turn to your partner and discuss the assignment," or whatever we were doing. And so I turned to the guy next to me and I started talking about the assignment, and the sit-in teacher comes up to me, snaps in my face to get my attention, and goes, "Stop talking." First of all, I'm just doing what I was told to do. Second of all, just because you're old and a teacher doesn't give you the excuse to be rude. You don't need to snap in my face to get my attention. You could just politely come up and say something like a normal, decent human being. I don't know why, I've just been thinking about that today.
Okay, since you guys asked for it, this is the time that I got dress coded at my little brother's high school when I went go get him from his classroom and you guys can just leave. So I was like, okay. So I start heading down the hallway and I realize I actually don't know where his class is. I start calling my brother like, hey, where are you? Where's your class? Like, I'm here. And he's not picking up. So behind me, I hear someone yell, hey, you, over there. So I turn around and he tells me, hey, where are you supposed to be, young lady? And before I can even tell him that I'm here to pick someone up, he tells me, hey, I'm going to have to dress because what you're wearing is very inappropriate. And then he kind of starts ranting about what I'm wearing is very distracting and that I wouldn't want to interfere with someone's education. Then he starts telling me, he's like, you don't want any unwanted attention, huh? He's also telling me some other stuff that I don't remember, but I cut him off right there and then. I look him dead in the eye and I tell him, I'm here to pick up my child. His jaw just dropped.
Chucky helps supports trombone.
I would put my finger in the fire, and no, it didn't hurt me whatsoever. I guess just because my mom was obsessed with candles, I was also obsessed with fire. So every time I seen the candle, I would put my finger in the fire, and no, it didn't hurt me whatsoever. I guess it was just amusing to me, and everybody called me a pyro. So one day I was scrolling on Musical.ly, and on like the Feature Me page, I saw something with a candle, and it was like how to make your own candle or something like that. But you had to make your own candle out of a candle. So I went into my room and I closed my door, and like the first step was melting the candle all the way. So I lit the candle and then I put a piece of paper in there. I don't know why I did, but I did. And the fire started getting so big, so I lifted the piece of paper and I threw it on my rug. And I didn't want to get in trouble for fire on the floor, so I just left my room and left it alone. And I kid you not, just a couple minutes later I hear the smoke detector going off. And my older brother screaming. Heard too how I burnt down my entire house at just 8 years old. So continuing on with the story, after I hear the smoke alarms going off and my brother screaming, I knew exactly what I did. And I blamed it all on my brother. And to this day, I still think it's my brother. Even though it was in my room, but my family believed whatever I said. Anyways, the whole backside of the house was on fire, and we all rush out of the house. And of course, my mom takes care of it. I'm pretty sure she called 911. Well, sadly, our 2 cats, 2 bunnies, and 4 hamsters were in the house. And our bird, but our bird was getting ready to pass anyways. I'm not sure how, but the house caught on fire so quickly, and the entire thing just blew up into flames. There might have been something else that the fire triggered to make it more big, I guess. I don't really know how to word that. But we ended up raising enough money to move to a different house because we lost every single one of our belongings. When the house burned down, there was only one wall standing, and it was the wall of pictures of my grandma who passed 10 years ago. This is a story of how I embarrassed myself in front of my entire class. So it was 7th grade math class, and honestly, when I was in middle school, that was definitely my awkward stage. I was just really weird. I always said the wrong thing. And I was always just embarrassing myself in front of people. One day, we were going over all these drills, like, lockdowns, fire drills, all that. And my teacher had a list of questions that we all had to answer, and she was the type of teacher that would just call on you randomly whether you were paying attention or not. And back then, we weren't even allowed to have phones, so I was just completely zoned out because of my ADHD, and the teacher decides to call on me after she had asked this question. If you're in the bathroom by yourself and an intruder comes in and says, is anybody in here, what do you say? Then she calls on me, and I don't know why, but the first thing in my head was to say that you say no. And right away, my teacher looked at me like I was an idiot and started crying, laughing with the entire class.
So when I was a sophomore in high school, I had this teacher who would only let the students in her class use the restroom one time per semester. Well, one day I raised my hand and I was like, excuse me, I don't remember her name, can I please use the restroom? And she was like, no, you can't because you've already used the restroom in my class this semester. Well, excuse me, you can't dictate my bladder. So I'm like all frustrated, and I started secretly texting my mom because I wasn't allowed to use my phone in class. And I was like, Mom, I'm sitting in class right now, my teacher won't let me use the restroom. And she was like, I'll take care of it for you. And I was like, okay. So like 5 minutes goes by, and all of a sudden my teacher's phone starts ringing. And she walks up to it and answers it, and she's like, hello? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then she walks up to me like so angry and she like slams the pass on my desk and she was like, since you have to go that bad. And I was like, yeah, I really do, thanks. And I got up and left. I didn't even have to go to the bathroom. It was just the principle of it. I just roamed the halls.
looks at
Apa?
that child and is in shock because she looks so much like her other two kids. She goes up to the little girl and says that she has bubble gum in her hair so that she can steal a few strands of her hair. She took it to a lab and they DNA tested it, and that little girl was her child. So it turns out many years ago during that house party, a woman that the mother knew went upstairs, took the baby, and started the fire so that the baby would be declared as dead and she could easily get away with kidnapping her. And then she ran from the cops and they can't find her.
Go. Time. So yesterday my friends and I all went to the fair and there were 6 of us in total. And none of us wanted to have to worry about driving there and parking, so we just Ubered instead. So we left the fair around 11:15 and we walked to a nearby shopping center where the Uber picked us up about 10 minutes late. We ended up leaving at 11:30. We get in the Uber, the man says hello, and we head home the normal way. Everything's fine. And my parents don't like when I Uber, so they were tracking me on Life 360 from the moment I got in the car. After about 10 minutes in, I get a text from my mom, and it said, "Where are you?" I look up from my phone, and I realize I have no idea where we are, and Ubers know their directions, they know how to take you home. We were 20 minutes out of the way. So I'm terrified. My mom's texting me nonstop, literally about to call the police. I'm gonna run out of time, but posting part 2 today. Okay, back to the Uber story. Our parents are freaking out, we're texting each other in our group chat so he doesn't hear us. Also, while this was all happening, he wasn't talking to us, but he had an earbud in, and he was talking to someone on the phone really quietly. It was super creepy. My mom starts